Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Unit 14 video. I'm Tamika Collins.
I'm Marshall Simpson.
I'm Augie Wana.
And here is our team video, Unit 14 video. So I will begin talking about the report that I read, and it was the 2017 library edition, and it was talking about improving digital literacy. So of course, we all into this digital age. So I wanted to find out how the library and how can we improve digital literacy. So some of the points that I read about was training future librarians in instructional strategies for teaching and understanding of data practices. Governments are prioritizing digital literacy initiatives to encourage economic development and enable citizens full participation in digital society. Leading organizations are developing resources to guide libraries in integrating digital literacy efforts. And the Public Library Association has a site, digitallearn.org, that offers self-directed tutorials for digital competencies. Libraries can also create their own digital literacy training sites that allow learners to customize their courses, track progress, and receive certification. Professional development can be built into digital literacy services and initiatives. Library leaders are contributing resources that aid this process, such as a library intelligence, a free diagnostic tool to assess the digital literacy capabilities of library staff, along with self-paced online courses. So digital literacy is very important. Teachers, as you know, have a lot on their plate. So incorporating digital literacy inside of the library, I think that would take some of the pressure away from teachers, and we can all be ensure that the students are still getting those digital literacy skills that they need, not so much in the classroom, but the library by collaborating with the librarians. Marsha, what did you do your report on?
Okay, Tamika, I did my report on the NMC Horizon Report 2016 Museum Edition. The reason I did this is I love museums. I could spend all day in a museum, not just the Museum of Natural History or the Fine Arts Museum. I mean, Houston has such a wide array of marvelous museums. I've been really sad because with COVID, I haven't got to visit museums as much as I usually do. So I cannot wait to be able to take my first school class on a field trip to a museum and just show them the wonderful things there that they can find. So I wanted to read about how the digital and technology world has advanced and helped our museums. And the first thing that I read about was the cross institution and collaboration. And this is where you've got museums, not just big museums, but little museums now, are they're working closely together and they're sharing their data, they're sharing their archives, they're sharing their exhibits. Now, I know this been doing this for years because I remember going to see the Fine Arts Museum, and they had some exhibits by Van Gogh on loan from Poland, and it blew my mind. It was such an amazing exhibit. And they're sharing workshops and resources, and because of this, they're giving, especially the smaller museums, opportunities to stay open because funding is always an issue for a museum. So now that they're sharing their exhibits and their knowledge and their archives, not only are they allowing these smaller museums to stay open, but they're working together to find answers that maybe that one museum had part of the puzzle while another museum had the other part. Now that they're sharing, they can find those puzzles through their archives.
Well, March, that remind me of the report I read, how the larger institutions are sharing their resources with smaller academic institutions, sharing their resources, and that is helping like the smaller academic libraries with funding.
Exactly, and that was my next point. This is such a great idea. I wish our schools, our public schools, would do this more often, because again, one school might have an answer as to how to solve a certain problem or work with children that other schools might not, and just sharing that information, having those seminars. Definitely need more inter-sharing in schools and seminars that all teachers can get together and brainstorm and try to solve some of these problems that we're faced with today.
Yes.
I would definitely like to see more of that. Another point that the report talked about was new rules for museum professionals. And so basically, they're breaking these traditional roles where you've got the museum curator that stands and lectures the students or the visitors that come in, and now they're making it more personal. They're interacting. They're asking people what their thoughts are. So they're just bringing it, making it more of an interactive, personal situation where it's actually motivating and letting the visitors more interested. Um, Another thing that the report talked about was the data analytics for museum operations. I mean, now with this new technology, I mean, they need all these new data jobs. So now you don't just have, the curators in these jobs. You've got robotics analysts. You've got machine learning personnel. You've got data scientists. That the museums are now asking, are opening these positions. So the museums are really spreading out, getting in touch with the data side of this, and our new jobs are opening up. Personalization. They're using social media. They're using surveys. They're using personal data collection sites and on-site interactions with visitors, um, to create, these personalized experiences like I talked about before. So they're bringing in all this data collection because they want to make this where the community is more interested in coming in, so they can bring in that money and they can make it do better exhibits. And they're using mobile content and delivery. They're designing smart designs so that you can pull up all this information on your phones. And you've seen this; they've been doing this for a couple of years, but they're really getting more into it. So you can use your phone interact in using your phone with the displays in the museum. So that's
I
really
saw that, Marsha, whether you have on, you can use your own headphones and it give you information about the exhibit
yeah,
or the
exactly.
artifacts that you see.
And then you can go on your phone and like you said, you can listen to something or you can look up more information. It's an interaction on your smartphones, your tablets. They're making it more easily accessible for the visitors to come in. So we're not wandering around wondering what's this about and what's this about. There's the information right at your fingertips. And lastly, participatory experiences, marker spaces, like I talked about last week. They're using them in these museums, the children's museums especially. I can spend all day with my kids. I take them to the museums and they want that hands-on experience, and we'll spend hours and hours in that part of the museum compared to other parts of the museum. It's like I have to pull them to get them out because they'll want to be in there all day. They don't want to go see the other stuff. They love that hands-on stuff. And I would
Yes.
like to see that even in the museums that are, for the older student. I think they would get that same reaction even with the older students. And then, like we talked about, engaging social media experiences, they're using crowdsourcing to engage participation from local communities. So it's all about bringing in that local community, not just, communities from all the world, but they're looking to bring in their local community and their local history too, also now in their museums. Now, the big thing that the report talked about problems with all this is money. A lot,
Yes.
especially with these smaller museums, they are asking, the ticket price is just donation. Technically, all these are just donations. They can ask, and when I see a lot of this, they can ask for a certain price ticket, but technically it's what you're willing to donate to get into that museum. So these museums are working off of donations, and to keep this running, they really need money and they need people to come in. So that was my report. What do you guys think?
Love it. A lot of the things that you spoke of, I have seen inside of the district before COVID, like the tour guides where you can have the audio while you go tour, so you don't need to have a live tour go around with you. And also the virtual tours that you can do online now.
Yes, I very much agree, like the collaborations with bigger schools, bigger institutions, because obviously two heads are better than one. We have the same goal and we just need to share our resources to get there. Definitely love the audio compatibility with museums, because even when I travel out and there are museums which have inscriptions in different languages. You can actually choose English with your audio or choose whatever language that you want to learn about a certain artifact or whatever that they have there. So very,
Exactly. In students, and I think and also a big help would be students with disabilities. You've got,
mhm.
these where they have their phones in front of them, and a lot of times it's their phones or their safety blanket. And then you've got students like who are autistic or Asperger's, where sounds and lights and everything, are just too much. With this new technology, they can go in and they can put their headphones on, and then they can be a part of that experience without having, a meltdown or a breakdown.
Right, right, exactly. Wow, great. It brings a lot of people together and helps us all achieve our goal for learning. All right. On my end, I looked into the 2020 EDUCAUSE Horizon Report, Teaching and Learning Edition. So basically, we've had the Horizon reports year after year, and for this year, 2020, the Edu Cause Horizon Report wanted to look at the implications all these trends have. It's one thing to year after year bring out great things, things we want to do now, things we want to do in the next 3 years, short term, long term goals. But what does that mean? What does that look like? How are we adapting to it? And I think that's what this article was presenting. First of all, it wanted to bring not just the US view or the US's implication with all these trends that the Horizon Report had brought out all these years, but also internationally. So it looked into different countries, Canada, Egypt, and a couple of them. Um, One thing that I noticed was yes, they wanted to get an international panel and an international view. However, they had limited continents. They had just Europe, North America, and Australia. So for Europe, they had France representing North America, they had Canada, Australia, they had Australia, right? But they didn't have sub-Saharan Africa, they didn't have South America. So I felt they should have had a better inclusion if
Mhm.
they're going to use the term international or global sphere at least. Okay. Looking into the Canada's outlook, that was interesting to me because, well, Canada, they believe in having their citizens all educated. So it's not just about what teachers can do or what principals can do or what educators can do. It's like, what can everybody do together? How can we all move this pedagogy to the next level? And they wanted students as well as educators to be more involved in training courses. So if an educator is talking about how a system should be more um, selective with how they use student data, students should also be involved with taking that up, like, okay, we want to see where our data is going and we're interested in it because we understand what's happening. So they were talking about educating students in undergraduate levels and graduate levels to know how to take up these issues, to understand that these are issues that they should be interested in as um, collaborators, as people whose data are being involved. Basically teaching them how to lead in that sphere. I also looked into the Egyptian higher education, and well, I said it was sort of like a case study for me. There's a huge inequality in sound or quality education for in Egypt. And so what the governments or what they want to do right now is they're moving more into the MOOC, which I talked about in my last article, where the Chinese education is creating that MOOC, and it's been implemented here in Egypt to create a more accessible quality education for all students because of the disparity in the quality of education. However, the MOOC, that is the massive open online courses, they are not accredited. So you might have a low income class person taking courses or taking classes to build their professional development, but they do not come out with a degree. They do not have sort of like a trajectory of diploma or something of that sort. I believe they can come out with certifications here and there, but you can spend so many years obtaining this free or accessible education, but the whole substance of getting almost like a physical copy, like what we all get after school, is not is not included. So that is a problem. And also, even with the MOOCs, we need accessibility, we need technologies for students to access these courses. And there's something that the Minister of Chinese, the Ministry of Chinese Education, I remember from my last article, was doing that I thought was a great idea. Many people access their internet using their phones. Not everybody has computers and laptops. And, bringing that in this case, whereby they do more small mobile giving out small mobile technologies for the sole purpose of education, I think that would be a good way to solve these um, problems with accessing this already available courses online. So it's something that I would, if I had to recommend, is for them to do to make it more accessible to all their students.
So
So,
Audie,
mm,
can I ask you a question? So
yes.
um, what you read in the Chinese report and what you read in this report, something that bothers me a lot is the inequality we have here in our education as far as the funding and availability of technology for our inner city schools and our rural schools. Do you think the stuff that you read about with the Chinese report and this report, do you think their ideas would help us here, make our schools more equitable, as far as education quality?
Yeah, yeah, I thought about it and what that would look like here. I think if as the pandemic hit, we were really faced with that fact of what do we do now? And I know that some households were working with one laptop, one major device, child after child, and some households it took some time for them to even get accessibility to technologies. I No one is really thinking about, oh, I didn't see a lot of input on how we can get other kinds of devices like mobile devices or like um tablets, or I don't know, phones that are specifically used for, this purpose of, you know, sending in your courses or doing your assignments and things like that. Because, well, if you want to have quality, we want to do something that is big, maybe provide computers for everybody. But if that's not working, or if there's no as much funds for that, what do we do to in the meantime, while we are still looking to get to that goal of every child has a computer that they're using from the age of what, 5 or 6?
Even
So,
younger than that nowadays.
right, because preschoolers, they are using computers, so like three.
Exactly. Head Start, 3 years old, they're using computers. So yeah, exactly. That's something we really need to work on and something we need to really talk about more and go into depth. Oh,
Yes.
here comes Tamika. I think we lost her for a second.
Oh no. I think we did a good presentation. I think I learned a lot from everyone's articles. The museum, I like visiting the museums as well. And hopefully soon after this whole craziness, we'll get to live in somewhat our hobbies and our normal lives.
Yes.
But
Right.
Tamika, do you have any final thoughts about this week's presentation
I
for
just
us?
find it interesting that's how our reports kind of relate to one another, connect. Because some of the things
Exactly.
that Augie was saying, it was like, oh yeah, that kind of go with what I read this in my report this week about the digital, how the government want to come into play and make sure digital learning is added into the curriculum. so that we can make sure that students are digital, learning the digital and how to be responsible with using, all the digital technology that is
Yeah.
out there.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys for this week's report, and I'm going to go ahead and stop it now. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.